Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Cousin
Connection Podcast. You said it so fast.
We're right on time, actually.
Oh, shoot. I actually am really loud.
As you guys can see, we are joined by a special guest.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, my name is Hasan.
Hasan Abbas. You guys have probably heard about him. Like, probably heard me mention his name like a million times at this point on this podcast.
We've wanted him on this podcast for so long. I know.
I've been dying to be here, guys.
He has.
We can send.
He's been messaging me like every week, but just the schedules have not worked out.
He kept on blowing me off. Like one day he told me, like, you don't know what we're talking about. The other day it's like, I don't want to hear it from you. So I'm finally happy to be here.
With this whole podcast game, it gets a little busy.
We're both busy now.
It's like your family until he's famous.
No.
Wow.
Okay, calm down. Okay.
No, I'm joking.
Wow.
No, but yeah. So we brought Hasan on here today. We were originally going to just, talk about history, but he actually has something that he brought for us, or that he actually made for us in the community and for the people who want to know.
Dremels.
It's called Threads of Memory, Harari Cultural Ceremonies. But yeah, so he actually ended up coming out with a book. I don't know if I should let you explain it, but
no, go ahead, please. I want to hear from someone else's mouth instead of mine.
Yeah. So he ended up coming out with a book about Harari culture, which we've mentioned a lot on this podcast, and finally someone's actually put it together into something we can read. And what do they call it when you like put something in a book to like hold it forever? Preserve all culture. Exactly. Gotcha. That thing. So yeah, let's just get into the questions I guess that we have, or a podcast in general. So first, my question is, so when did you choose, or when was the time you were like, you know what, I need to write a book?
Well, it was never my idea initially. It's just something I've always heard, right?
Yeah.
Since we were younger, the three of us were always part of the same community, and we always had like that period where we were doing youth events and stuff. And after every event, we out here someone say like, you should probably just write down a few things and make it available to other people. Until a certain point, like it was always like, haha, yeah, right. But when you hear something over and over again, like I finally got the push, and there's a lot of other motivating factors as well too. It's not just what people are saying, it's more so just what the community needs in a sense, right? I feel like a lot of our generation, we complain about not being connected to our culture or not knowing a lot about our history or who we are. And when you hear something so much that often, like you kind of want to dig in and see why. And one of the main reasons that I thought, we have this issue in our generation is we don't have the resources available to allow people to kind of dig in and get to know their culture, right? And there are other barriers as well too, like the language barrier within our generation.
Yeah.
Some people can't speak the language.
Hey. I'm not here to shoot shots, okay? I'm
joking. You speak very well. But some people, one of the main ways we can learn our language and learn our culture, or like connect to our identity nowadays, is through our language, right? More than reading is like we talk to our elders, we take what they have from their mouth. So it's like we're learning our history from our people instead of some random academic who's just writing about our people kind of thing, right?
Yeah. Which has been done in
that's most of the the articles available online nowadays.
Yeah.
So it's like, why don't we kind of get together, put a book together meant for people of our generation that's easy to read, and it's like it doesn't put you to sleep, right?
Yeah.
So that's like the idea that first came to mind. And so it flew off, and this is what it became.
Yeah, and actually I feel like I jumped the gun a bit, because one thing people don't know is that like if there's one thing that I would like, if someone asked me who Hasan was, I'd be like, he's like a history nerd for Harar. And I've always wanted to know, like, what was your catalyst? What was the reason that, like, what made you so interested in learning about the culture to begin with?
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. Like, I feel like that's how a lot of people see me.
Yeah.
Guys, there's more to me than that. I'm just joking. But on a serious note, I think what became a catalyst is, and I mentioned it in the preface of the book, just like what motivated me to become so like into the culture. I was about to say obsessed. That's not the word.
That might have been appropriate enough to.
No, but it was a certain situation where I was a young kid, and it was one of the elders in the community who's one of my maternal uncles. he was kind of telling me a story of a childhood song that children used to sing back in the days in Harar. It's called Aye Wahri Dishka for those of you who know it.
Can you
Oh no!
sample it for me? Really?
Yeah, my vocals are not right today. I need more tea. But it's a very like fun song, and for anyone, even like for our parents' generation, they have no idea what it means.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch of words. It sounds fun. It rhymes and everything. And back in the days.
Do you know the words? Like,
yeah.
Can you just say it?
Ay warhay dishka, unkan nikalla shakha dishka. And I forgot the rest.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, right?
And I had no idea what it means.
Yeah, for like, the words, we know what they mean. It's like, but when you try to put it into a sentence, no one can translate it.
Yeah.
Right? Because it sounds like gibberish kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like whenever you see stuff like that in the Harari culture, it's often code. It's often things that are symbolisms for other more, deep and, meaningful things. And a lot of times, when you ask people in our generation, they just go, they brush it off. It's like, oh, that's just a song, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so this is a song that children used to sing when they see the full moon. Back in the days in Harar, right? Aye Warhay means my mother, the moon kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it has a profound meaning. Until this day, I can't tell you what it means.
Yeah.
But, younger version of me was sitting in front of my uncle.
Yeah.
And he was telling me the story, and, I could have cared less at that time because I was a young kid, right?
Yeah.
And he was talking and talking and talking, and like, his eyes gleamed, and like he was so into it, and like I'm just listening.
Yeah.
And, the night ended. A few years later, he passed away, and, I remember that song, and I was like,
he planted the seed.
He planted a seed. It's
Yeah.
like, and at that time, like, I didn't notice, right? And I was like, I wonder what a song means. So I asked, people in my family and people in the community. I asked a lot of people. Until today, like, I have no idea what the song means. And no one was able to tell me.
Yeah. But that search led you to
this.
Wow.
Kind of
Yeah. So, at that time, like, that gives us the realization as well, too. It's like, a lot of our history and a lot of identity like has been lost through the last century or so because of the wars and the occupation and some people don't call it a genocide, but it was basically a genocide, right?
Yeah. You're talking about Chelenqo.
Yeah. The post Chelenqo, what happened, right? But and a lot of that was preserved through songs and stories and oral traditions, right?
Yeah.
And so what the realization I came up with at that time is if a huge part of our culture, or even as little bits at a time, dies with the elders that are holding it, and our generation is not doing what they need to do to preserve it, then who are we going to be 50 years from now?
Exactly. Where are we going to be as a community?
That's a scary thought.
Exactly. Are we going to rely on these academic resources that, there's some weird stuff in there.
There's a lot of bias, definitely.
Yeah, and they kind of pervert our history and who we are as people, right? So are we going to rely on that, or are we going to take the action into our own hands kind of thing?
Where would you say, like, that kind of talks about where the inspiration comes from, but, kind of walk us through, I guess, the evolution from learning a song when you were a kid to now writing a book. Like, what were the steps that you took? I know we were there for most of it, but for our viewers' sake, and our listeners, like, kind of walk us through how you went from just learning a song as a child to now being, a co-author of a book.
How old were you when you first started searching for that? Like, expanding your knowledge on the culture and history?
Well, for personal, benefit and just for my own interest, it was like as early as 15, 16.
Okay.
Yeah. But in a more serious sense, like to kind of get this book started and actually document things. Yeah. It kind of started in 2017. So 2022, that's 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's basically where it started. But, in 2017, I started to write these things down, like for my own use, in the sense that like I never expected that this is going to be for other people to look at kind of thing.
Right.
And a common friend of ours, I showed it to her and she was like, why don't you make it into a book?
Yeah.
And I was like, haha, yeah, right. And, they pushed. And finally I was like, I might as well just give it a try.
Yeah.
And a good month and a half of writing, and I kind of burnt out and like put it in a G drive and never looked at it again for like 5 years.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. I was so over it because, and it goes to show you how deep and rich the Harari culture is, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so like, it's a lot, and for one person to do a project like this, it's like I don't think a single person has the capacity to do this. And it's more so a communal effort. So I left it alone until finally that friend again was like, where's the book? Yeah, where's the book, right? Like he said it was gonna be done. So I thought about it and I was like, well, I didn't do it because it was too much for me. So I might as well just work with other people who have the skill sets that are required to kind of fill in the areas I wasn't able to. So, I prayed on it and I came across two very skilled people. Hamdi Sadi from Australia and Nader Mohammed from Toronto. And then we worked on it for a while until it became what it is today. Does Hamdi, I know Hamdi and Nader, they're like the co-authors, I guess? Yeah. And do they also have like a very similar love or like I guess love for the culture and history, or like you do? Like did they also have some knowledge they could show you or give you, or was this like you were coming with the knowledge and they're teaching you how to like put it into words or how to write it in? Like how did this collaboration even work? That's actually a very interesting question. And I think it's more so the first one. It's like we all have like this real, love and passion towards our culture and identity, but I think in different capacities, right? And that's one thing. One of like the pros of us working together is like we all supplemented each other's passion towards the culture. So Hamdi, like his Gaysanan is like A1, right?
He speaks like the old Gaysanan.
Like sometimes like he throws words at me. I was like, what does that mean, kind of thing, right? And his grammar is really good too. So like, he kind of helped a lot with like the research as well. And Nader as well, he has like this profound, like, deep love for the culture as well. And they're both really good writers. Right. So Hamdi did a lot of research on his end through his mom and his aunt. And then Nader was able to kind of, create the framework of the book with the information that we have. And me, it's just, a lot of the research as well too on my end and kind of, guiding the project into where it needs to go. And the three of us kind of work together to make it happen. But in the sense that like me learning from them, I did learn a lot from them.
So this book is specifically, is it just on the wedding traditions, like exclusively wedding traditions, or do you like kind of sneak in a few other things there as well?
That's a good question.
Yeah, because this one, just for people who don't know, it's called Volume 1. So it looks like you're planning on making more, of course. But this one is specifically called Volume 1 Wedding Traditions. So exactly how, I'll let you explain it. So how did you put this together? What kind of information are we going to find in here?
Well, that kind of touches into how the project started. Was supposed to be a comprehensive like look of the Harari culture. And one of the reasons why the first burnout happened is because it's a lot to put in a book, right? So I was like, why not just do like one volume at a time and take it from there, right? So the first volume I wanted to do was about the kings and queens of Harar. So to tell the story of Harar through select kings and queens. Like I had like nine of them.
Because how many do we have in total? There's a lot.
They say like 72 between 73.
I saw there's a map, the list in the Harari, the
museum, right?
They also have it, I think, in like the entrance of Jogor, like on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
It was like painted on there.
Remember? Oh, really?
Saw it right outside of the museum, the Adagar.
I saw that.
They have it there too.
Like it's something that we're really proud about is our documented history and like in the monarchies, right? And I feel like that would have been a very good way to tell us the history of Harar, but through them, especially like the ones that I was thinking about kind of focusing the book on. So when you're working with people, like you do have to have like discussions about what are your insights, what do you think is going to work. It's not just the way I see it. And what a lot of people told me like outside of the project is if you want this project to start off on a strong foot, maybe choose a different subject, right?
Something a little easier to start with, like
right.
Because it's going to be pretty intense to go through that much history, especially the kings and queens.
No, 100%. And like all the background information. It is a lot. So they're like, why not do weddings? Right. And initially when we were planning on doing this, it was only supposed to be a few pages, like not more than 100. And after like we did more and more research, we got more and more information. This was a learning experience for us too, because a lot of what's in the book now, we didn't know prior to writing the book. Right. So like as like we learned more, like the book got bigger. And so we decided to stick with the weddings because I think it's pretty obvious nowadays, a lot of the people who are into the culture within our generation, more than the guys are the girls. Right. And more than the topic that most like attracts, like, the girls is like wedding traditions and stuff. So they're like, if you really want this project to hold, base it on weddings.
Yeah. And there's
That's
a
a
lot
good
of
call.
traditions like in weddings. I didn't know about a lot of these things. Like I read a book back in the day. I probably showed you that book once. It's like 100 pages, and it has some like descriptions of weddings of things I've never seen before. I can't even describe what they said right now, but it was just like, I was like, we don't do this at all right now.
Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it's almost extinct.
Yeah.
Maybe in Harar, like every other wedding, you may see it.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like, well, that's good to know kind of thing, because we don't know anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, even to like one of my friends in Harar at that time, like I was kind of telling him about the content of the book.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I used to hear about that. It was like,
Whoa, really?
Yeah. So it's like, even our parents' generation, like they probably caught most of it.
Yeah.
But if it's not happening now, and a lot of the resources that are available, if they're not readable to us now, like how would we be able to preserve this for our generation?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. When you first came and I looked at the book, I was shocked to see like how many pages. I'm like, I thought I knew everything about Harari wedding.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
you probably didn't realize how many pages it was until you finally put it together, right?
No, 100%.
Yeah.
Like even like the document when we gave it to the formatter, it was only like 100 pages or so, and we didn't realize how many pages it's actually supposed to be because it was in fine print.
Right.
But when he brought this to us, I was like, oh wow. Yeah.
And I've always like wanted. I should have been one of the people telling you to write a book, because I've always wanted something like this that was like put together nicely, so that like even if the next generation doesn't do as much research as we used to, or at least grow up with the culture, at least they'll have somewhere to kind of learn that information or learn about our history.
Yeah.
Because like unfortunately, like you can see it in the next few generations, like it's starting to get weaker and weaker when it comes to following the traditions exactly as they were. It's like except for weddings, I feel like that's the only thing we sort of do.
I totally agree with that.
I agree, but I feel like the interest is still there. Like people are still interested, and maybe through this, the production of this book, you might be reviving that.
Yeah, that's also a big thing.
So
yeah.
But like one thing like Amir just like brought back to my head. Well, before I go into that, I was like, I feel like I should mention you guys in the credits of the book too, because you guys were people who've mentioned before, like you should write a book and put it together too. So like a bit of the motivation comes from you guys as well.
And if you guys don't know, like when we say like we literally kind of saw, I feel like we watched you grow
in the process
into this.
of this.
Especially because as one of our friends, like anytime we would even hang out, like you just randomly just spew out like just tidbits
Random
of information. And we're like, wow, that's so interesting. And he just like casually mentioned it. And so anytime, like I know if I've ever had questions, I'd be like, hey, like, what's this? And he would just have the answer. So I mean, we are very proud of you, of Nadir, of Hamdi for doing something like this for our generation and generations to come. MashaAllah.
And also like mentioned, just to jump off what Sarah said, like the fact that this might actually motivate more people to learn about our culture now. Because I think the issue before was that like you did all the legwork of going to all the people, like where you were going to like aunts and uncles and like ummas and kakas.
They're all tired of me now.
Exactly. Just trying to gather all this information to one place, because the issue before was that if you did want to learn about the culture, like there was no one place to go to. You didn't know who to go to. So now that we're kind of putting it into book form and like actually writing it down, people, if they wanted to learn, they can quickly go to this resource and start reading it and learn whatever they need. And hopefully when you make the more volumes, like people will be able to it makes it a lot easier to access our culture and religion, or not religion, but culture and traditions.
But that's the thing, like our culture is really connected to our religion
too.
It's like when you're learning the Harari culture, you're also learning religion. Because
like we have of course a large Muslim audience, right? So I feel like this would also really be something positive or good to look into for people who are not Harari, because of our such like tied to religion with our culture, right? Like we're known as, I think you mentioned in the previous episode, where we're known as like the fourth holiest city in the world or something like that. Harar is. So why wouldn't you as a Muslim want to know more about that city, more about their cultures? Because everything in our culture has some root in the religion.
It does.
Yeah, like even the smallest things, like literally you probably breaking down each line and finding out like 5 different meanings Like we were talking about
It's
the house.
intense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which one?
Like
You know
remember when
the-
the house we went to the
Like the Nadabaga, the typical.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
the
they have
king's
the
house.
5.
The
like-
5 in like shelves. Okay.
Yeah. Or even
the steps.
the steps. They were saying this is supposed to remind you of the basically like the different skies or the different heavens. Sorry.
That
Yeah.
one caught me off guard.
I know. I was like,
Mhm.
I just
what?
learned that on this trip. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never like I've always wondered about different things and like, I'm
Yeah.
like, why do they have like, is this just for design? And then as she was like explaining different things, my mind was blown. I just sat there like, wow, that's
Every
amazing.
single thing had its meaning. And actually,
Yeah.
that's one thing to mention. Like, while we were in Ethiopia, Hasan happened to be in Ethiopia at the same time as us.
We didn't plan it.
We didn't
even
plan it. It
see
just happened.
him.
Yeah.
Like I saw you from far.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't see. Sorry. Yeah. I saw Aisha and I saw.
I was I
Yeah.
hang out with him.
Yeah.
You made me the cameraman, and I'm just I'm like, no, but yeah. So like, actually, that's probably something we should get into. Like, even though you have this like love for the culture and our history, it was only like this past month that you actually went to Ethiopia for the first time in how many years?
25 years.
25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, this was your first time?
His
Yeah.
first time in
Did
25
you not
years.
go a couple years ago? Am I imagining you being there?
Nah,
Yeah.
I wasn't there. I left when I was 3, and it never
Yeah, you were
happened.
born in Ethiopia
Yeah,
originally,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Wow.
And so you made your pilgrimage back to the country, to our hometown.
So tell us about that though, because
Yeah.
did
like-
you have any preconceived notions of like what Ethiopia was going to be like, or did you kind of already know through your research? Like, what was your experience like going there?
To be honest, like when I went there, it already felt like I've been there for a very long time.
Mhm.
Okay.
So like to get acquainted to like things there, it didn't take me that much. And I think it's because all of my older brothers, they were born there and they were raised there up to like a certain age.
Mhm.
So like being around them for so long and hearing them tell stories and stuff,
Mhm.
like I feel like I already been there through them and my father, my uncles, and so on. So it wasn't too much of a culture shock when I went there, but when you go there, everyone knows that you're not from there.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's wild.
That's
like
true.
yeah, it's like from like the beggars on the street to distant relatives. It's like, yeah, you're not from here, are you?
You didn't hold on to any of your Amharic from when you were
Nah.
You didn't learn any? Did you have
Only
no
the bad
interest,
words,
or-
huh?
Only
Yeah. I tried. Like I feel like this trip, like a lot of it came back.
Yeah.
But not enough to hold a conversation.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
You were able to get around at least. Like,
Yeah, it helped.
I wouldn't
It
be able to
helped.
get around
Nope.
anywhere. Yeah.
You learned a couple.
I
words.
probably forgot them now because I haven't used them in a few weeks.
But we live in the age of Google Translate. So
I know,
Anything
exactly.
can get you by.
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
try
that's
that.
true.
But with Amharic, I don't know they have as many resources to kind of like
It's
I
actually
think
really
translate
good.
it. Is
It's
it really?
actually really good. Yeah. Like I
Okay.
hired a driver and
Yeah.
we didn't speak a word to each other
Yeah.
verbally. It's just Google
Stop.
Translate. Yeah, like the
Really?
whole week he was driving me
Really?
around. Yeah, everything was like a Google Translate.
No way.
It was good.
You should have practiced. Like, I think if you have willingness to like break up the, I don't know how to say it in English.
Mhm.
Like, but if you like try, even though you're
I don't know how to say it in English.
I know. I saw.
What?
I can think of the word in Gaysinan, but I don't know how to say it
For
in
what?
English. Like,
How do you say
when you want to
English?
like, tisbabra ma tisanah.
Oh, like
Sinanza.
Oh, like-
like
like-
struggle and speak it, right?
Yeah, there
broken
you go. That's
broken
the-
language or
Yeah.
broken English or something like that.
Yeah, like if
Yeah.
you try, I feel like you kind of, they'll correct you. You learn it that
Yeah,
way. And,
yeah.
Exactly.
Amir, that's what Amir did the whole time.
Yeah,
Now
I tried. My Gaysinan or my Gaysinan got a lot better,
Mm-hmm.
but my Amharic is still like trash. It's not even close. No, but honestly, like, okay, so because you did so much research and you knew so much about the history, like, did going to Harar, did it like meet your expectations? Did you were you expecting? Did it not meet your expectations? How did it feel actually going to the city for the first time? Like, even when you were here when you were a baby, I don't think you went. Did you?
No.
Yeah, you probably never went, right?
No.
So your first time ever, the city that you've like been doing all this research, you almost half your life. How did it feel actually going there?
It was grounding.
Mm.
Like, you know how they say like you're a foreigner like in foreign lands and you're a foreigner when you go back home kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like you do feel a sense of that when you're around people because they. Due to the current political situations, like even with the Harari community, you get a lot of side comments, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
This may not be the platform to talk about it, but
I mean, speak your truth. Go
yeah,
for
so,
it.
like you hear a lot of, oh, you guys left,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Really?
Yeah, I got a lot of that.
Really?
It's like when we talk about like the current situation in Harar and
Yeah.
the current situation of what's going on and how
Yeah.
there's so many Hararis in Toronto,
Yeah.
right? They're like, oh, you guys left, and the situation needs to be better, kind of thing, right?
We never had any choice in the matter.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
I was like 3 years old when I left.
Exactly,
Like, give me
yeah.
a break. I'm here to visit now, right?
Yeah.
But But when I was by myself and like when I just like started to like get lost on purpose to see things in Harar and stuff, like it was such a grounding feeling, to the sense that this is a land where I can trace my lineage back to 1100 years, right? Who knows, like all my grandfathers probably walked by this alleyway. Or when you go to like certain places where like the certain kings resting places, or certain mosques that have been there for almost like 1300 years. It's like it's such a grounding feeling, because the history, the place you're standing on has so much history. And like the fact that it's your own history being connected to it is something different. Like when I went to Turkey, right? That was a similar feeling, but not like this, because this is like where you come from, right? When you come to Turkey, it's like, mashallah, this is where Islamic history comes from, and you feel that connection to it. But to see something where your ancestors built, and they built it intentionally for their generations to come. So it's for us. Right. So it was a very grounding feeling, and what I can say about it is that it met my expectations, and to some degree, like it exceeded my expectations. But what some people told me is that you're only saying that because you haven't been here, like, from Kuba 2010 and stuff like that, because that was a more better time for Harar. And with the current political situations, it's not as good now. But for someone who first time there, it was amazing.
I think if you don't look at if you remove the political issues to the side and you kind of just look at your experience in itself, like I completely understand when you're comparing it to Turkey versus Harar. So I mean, politics aside, I'm glad you had a good experience. Don't let that stuff ruin it for you.
Okay. It's okay.
One thing I do hope is that, like, even though we are, there's a word I'm trying to think of.
What are you trying to say?
Like when you put information together.
Preserve?
Yeah. Why do I keep forgetting the word preserve?
Amir.
I don't know what's going on. Okay.
You want some of my
No. But my one thing is like. Even though we are preserving the culture and the history now, I hope that like because of this political climate, we don't like lose that, like where we only have this to turn to, where we can't actually go back to our homeland. Like I don't think that's ever gonna happen. Hopefully, inshallah, like things get better. Inshallah. But like that's always been a fear of mine, being like, this might be our only resource in the next 100 years or something.
I hope not.
I hope not too. Exactly. But even being there, like when I was looking at the buildings, like it doesn't really, even to now, it doesn't hit me that these are thousands of years old.
Right.
Yeah. Just looking at them, I'm like, looks like that was built like 2 weeks ago, man. There's no way this is built like 1300 years ago. They do a good job of taking care of it. They do. Exactly.
You kind of need like a moment of reflection for it to like hit you. Like I did that when I was there 6 years ago, because I was in Harar I was actually there for 4 days, but like I was by myself. I didn't have you guys to like entertain me, so I really like that's when it sinked in. This time I feel like I came for more of a
we weren't there long enough to actually let it sink in. That's the unfortunate part. And actually, I guess I would call you a historian right now for Harar.
That's not
so. No, there's a rumor. There's a rumor that like for people know Harar to have like a very colorful walls in the city, but there's actually a plan where they're going to be painting all of them back to what they call the original color of being white. Do you know if that was the case, where all the walls used to be just white?
Well, like when you look at a lot of the historic photos, like from the 1800s when Rimbaud and stuff went, it looks white. The pictures are black and white. It's hard to tell, but like they all look white.
So what do you feel about that? Like for me, I was like, I feel like we know it as the colorful city, right?
Exactly.
Like with all the colorful walls, you have the green here. You got sometimes even purple on the walls.
That's character.
Yeah, it adds a little bit of character. But now they're planning on making it all white. I'm not sure why they're planning on making it all white. I think it's just to
maybe to look more uniform.
UNESCO's coming to Harar.
The
United Nations. I don't know what the full abbreviation stands for.
Because it's a heritage site, right?
So like they wanted to pretty up the city so that when they get there, they have something nice to look at.
And that's honestly like, even though they're kind of doing that change for that, it still gives me hope that they're still paying attention to the area, because it means that they will probably help to preserve the buildings. Like I don't know if you saw it when you're walking to each of the houses. You see a little plaque on the top of all the houses.
Put a smile on my face.
Exactly. To kind of be like, this is known by UNESCO as a heritage site. Right. So they can't touch it, they can't demolish it or anything. So at least that gave me hope to be like, okay, they're gonna try to preserve this for the long term. At least anything within the jugol, which is the walls. And I think even the word jugol is is it an Amharic term? It's not an actual Harari term, right?
It's not, no.
Do you know what they used to call it?
No.
That's ironic.
And
Yeah.
it's deep because it shows you like how connected Harar was to its surrounding areas and to its other ethnicities, right? Because Harar at a point in time was a meeting point for all these different ethnic groups, and they were united by faith, right? So even though they had a difference of like, ethnicity, the one thing that brought them together was faith. And from what I was told, and I heard it more than once, so I assume it's true, is that the word comes from, it's a Somali word. It's an old Somali word, Jogan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like when we have the 5 gates of the city, and whenever, people who wanted to come to the city come from the Somali direction of the wall. The guards of the wall will say jog, right? And that means stop.
Yeah.
Right?
Interesting.
And then afterwards, they would ask him questions, and then afterwards, if they see that he's a friend and he's coming to, just to see the city or like learn or to be a part of the people, they would tell him "gal," meaning go inside.
Yeah.
Right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So like that's where the word comes. It's actually 2 separate words, meaning stop and go.
Yeah.
That's why they call it the wall of the city, like what's within the Jogan.
Wow.
And actually, we can also talk a little bit about the history of Harar. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of ethnicities there, and it's not only like the local ethnicities. I believe there are also Turkish people there. There were Yemeni people there. There's like Sudanese. Anyone? I don't know if they're Sudanese.
I wouldn't be surprised,
honestly. Yeah, but they were just people from across the whole world, right? I think they even have what's that Thompson guy? Oh, shoot, I forget the building's name.
Rimbaud.
Rimbaud, Rimbaud.
I was like, who's Thompson?
He was a French
After you
guy.
get to know Amir, you get to know Amir.
Yeah, but like Harar was like an international center at one point.
It was.
It was a what do they call it? It was a hub for trade, right?
Trade, Islamic knowledge.
Islamic knowledge as well. There are a lot of walis. Like how many walis? They roughly estimate that were in the city. Like it used to be called city
like
saints.
With the resting places counted, it's like 102.
102, right? But there's probably
actual numbers like thousands.
Yeah. Because
like I read something saying like you there was a time where you could walk. You couldn't walk more than I can't remember how many steps. A step. Did you guys post that? Maybe I read it from you guys. I read it somewhere online. But you couldn't walk a step without bumping into another awliya.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised just from the amount of knowledge that was being passed on in that in that city, right? And do you know like roughly around what time that was? Like, what would you call prime time Harar? Like not prime time, but the golden age.
I'm not good with centuries.
Yeah,
but, I would say about 500 years ago.
500 years ago,
wow.
right?
In terms of like, a good overall balance of a good time, like politically, religiously, agriculture, everything, I would say it would be around the time of Amir Noor and Imam Ahmed. And they were seen as the medieval kings of Harar that kind of saved the city and expanded the empire and everything. So that would be like the ideal prime time of what Harar was.
Yeah.
A lot of people might disagree with me, I don't know.
Yeah.
But in my general opinion, like I would say it's done.
Yeah. And just to go a little bit, not a little later in the history, about like 100 and maybe 20 years ago. I know we mentioned this a few times in past podcasts, but we even in the beginning of the podcast, we mentioned Chelenqo, but I don't think we ever explained it. Like Sarah tried to explain it on...
Not you discrediting my
okay,
summary.
she sort of explained it.
I'm sure you did a good job.
I just explained what I learned from him, literally.
Yeah, okay, but now that we have you here, I feel like we can probably... give a little bit more information on why we mentioned Chelenqo so much. And like the Sati Bakla. Oh no, that's not the Sati Bakla. That's over. I wouldn't do that to it. Okay, put it on the screen.
We can make one if you have a red marker.
Huh?
We can make one if you have a red marker.
Yeah, just put one on there. But yeah, so
translate Sati Bakla, by the way, or are you gonna wait for him to do it because you just said it in Gaysinan?
Sati Bakla just means like 700.
But like, okay, you don't want to make the connection?
Oh, it's okay. It's for the 700 warriors who were killed during the Battle of Chelenqo.
Yep.
Who were all, I think, newlyweds as well, right? Yeah. So, okay, let's go into the history. So, yeah, I consider like anything before, at least I used to consider that anything before Chelenqo was like the golden age of Harar. And then unfortunately, because of Chelenqo, like, it was, I guess you could say we were colonized by our own people. Would you say it's colonized? I would say it's colonized. In a way.
Golden Age.
And then the Great Depression.
I think Harar's golden age was at least a century before Chelenqo.
Oh, okay.
Like the decline was gradual.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And for someone who's living in that time, it was unnoticeable. But someone who's retrospectively looking back at Harar,
Yeah.
You'll notice a very like notable decline of our I guess like our politically you know, as a state and everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't notice this because when we start talking about the story of Chelenqo, we start at the point where Menelik says, "Hey, give me your land,"
Yeah.
and then Amir Abdullah says no, and then they fight and everyone dies.
Yeah.
Right?
Menelik was the was he a king of Ethiopia? Or
Yeah,
like-
so he was the king of the Abyssinian Empire at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But where it kind of starts is actually with, if you want a more comprehensive picture of it, it starts with Rimbaud.
Really?
Oh, really?
What I mentioned earlier? Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
How does it, I don't know how he plays in it. Let me know.
it's not direct, but it's indirect.
Yeah,
And for
yeah.
someone who kind of has an understanding of the whole, notion of awliya and barak and stuff, one of the things that the scholars of the past used to say is Harar would always be protected as long as, we kept it safe from, foreigners with ill intentions, right? Because the wall around the city was to protect it from foreigners with ill intentions.
Right.
So that's one of the things Sheikh Hashim, one of the forefathers of the city, said. He kind of foretold, like, the moment you guys let a foreigner in with ill intentions for the city, and you guys don't do enough research to, to kind of suss him out, that's when the decline will start. So Sheikh Hashim foretold that, a long time before Rimbaud even came. Then Rimbaud comes, and he's a Frenchman who is a explorer, finding land that's already been found. And he shows up and
typical white behavior.
Exactly. And he has a very interesting story.
Yeah.
Like, this guy was fluent in Arabic. He spoke a bit of Somali and a lot of different stuff. And he came from like the Yemen route, and he came to Harar. And at that point, he's already speaking Arabic fluently. So they ask him, like, "Who are you?" And he goes, "I'm an Islamic scholar. I'm Arab." Right? And he has the skin to prove it. And then afterwards, he goes, "What are you doing here?" "I'm just here to visit." So initially, the king at that time, when he saw Rimbaud come in, he was suspicious, like immensely suspicious. And when you read his journal, he mentions that the king did not like me, and he actually put him on house arrest until like they can figure out like who this guy is. And later on, like, they started to trust him and they let him go about and stuff of that sort. So, for those who have an understanding of what Sheikh Hashim said, I would say that's when the decline happened. And right before the Chelenqo War, the last king of Harar's father, Amir Abdul Karim, I think his name is, that's when we became politically weak. Because from the time of like Amir, Imam Ahmed, up to that point, we've been fighting a lot of wars. Right, and it's always been with the same ethnic groups and the same people. But one thing Amir Abdul Karim did is he realized that at that point we're weak, right? And we can't go further fighting wars, and we had to use a different approach to kind of to protect the city. So his approach was a more peaceful one. He told them, "Hey, let's be friends," right?
Really?
Yeah. And he, like, I agree with it. If there's any historians who's willing to fight me on it,
but very
we'll talk later. But I agree with it, right? Because it was a very sound decision. It's like, you don't have the money to fight, you don't have the political power to fight, and how long are you going to continue fighting? So with these ethnic groups, every year he would send them gifts, right, to kind of tell them, "Hey, we're one," right? And there's a story, like, even with there was a mosque in one of their lands far away. He actually like paid from the state money to rebuild it.
Oh wow!
Right, and he rebuilt it very similar to Harari architecture. And it's a very subtle message, right? Because the mosque right beside it, there's a saint buried there.
Oh wow!
And that saint was Gesu Harari.
Oh, okay.
No way!
And he's the one who brought Islam to our region.
Wow.
Right. So he's telling them, he was very smart. Like, it was his way of telling them, "Hey, we brought the faith to your lands, right? Remember the good we did for you, and stop bothering us." Right. And then every year he would send different tribes, like, gifts of butter, honey, clothing, and stuff, like stuff that was considered valuable at that time. And some people liked his idea. But a lot of the people of Harar at that time, they disliked him.
Why? Because he chose the peaceful route?
Yeah.
So they just wanted bloodshed.
According to some of the sources, they were just so used to, like, not liking those people. It's like, we want to continue fighting, right? So what happened?
It's like being stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's like, what do you do if you like? Do you take the chance of like ending your whole city by like just,
exactly,
you know, losing all your warriors and being completely weak, or you know, chipping away at it very slowly?
That's
like, what can you do?
Literally the best way to describe it. He was stuck in a very difficult situation, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of our parents, if you ask them, you know, what do you know about Amir Abdul Karim? And if there's someone like who have some sort of understanding of history, they tell you, yeah, he was a crazy guy.
Really?
Oh, really?
That's what the story is nowadays, is that Amir Abdul Karim was crazy. And, you know, the Hararis had to remove him, right?
Oh,
so, like, the story kind of got rerouted.
Yeah.
But the reality situation is that that's what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
So, long story short, he was murdered.
No way. They murdered him?
Yeah, it's a very long story.
Oh, wow.
Who murdered him? That's a different discussion.
Yeah.
But he was murdered, right? And that created a pretty big instability among Harar, right? Because up to that point, we had a king who was kind of, until that point, it was successful, his endeavors. But for a lack of, like, you know, others understanding, he was murdered. And with a state that has so many enemies, it destabilized the city. So the Ottoman Empire at that time, which we answered to in a certain way, was like, okay, you guys need to be protected. They told the Ottoman soldiers in Egypt to occupy Harar.
Okay.
Right? So first the Ottoman Empire gave them permission to occupy Harar, the Egyptians. And they came, they occupied, they protected, they did other things like preserve that one mosque that now is known as the Arab Mosque. But at a certain point, you know, Amir Abdul Karim's son, at that point, he was old enough to take the throne. And, you know, some sources say the Egyptians weren't so happy to leave, even after the Ottoman Empire telling them to leave. So without a single bloodshed, Amir Abdullah was able to take back the city again. And that's how many change of powers in such a short amount of time. Amir Abdul Karim died. Egypt occupied. Amir Abdullah, a young man at that time, takes over. That's a lot of instability. So Menelik at that time, he saw this as an opportune moment. He's like, you know, we've been wanting this land for so long. We've been fighting for the past 600-700 years. I think this is a great time. So that's when he started to send the provocative letters to Amir Abdullahi, saying, hey, this was the land of our forefathers. I think you should give it back to us, or you pay taxes. Right? And Amir Abdullahi, he sent a very funny letter back to him. It was very, you know.
Was it witty? Or?
It was very witty. They had, so I think Menelik sent him a bag of lentils. And he told him, you know, word this many, like a bag of like thousands of lentils. And like we can engulf you in a moment. And Amir Abdullah sent him a bag of asu, paprika. And he told him, like, you know, we can burn you, right?
I remember this story.
Exactly. And then Menelik sends him another letter and he tells him, you know, give us the land or else give us the land or else.
But they didn't have any real claim to the land, did they? Historically?
No, because the people who were there at that time, they're indigenous to the land. You know, other people from other parts of the world came and intermarried and decided to live there as well too. But the bloodline of the indigenous people of that land still were there. Right, so the land belonged to them. So then, you know, Menelik wasn't happy. He sent another provocative letter, and then Amir Abdullah, he sends him a prayer mat and a turban. Like, it was a lot of back and forth. So finally, you know, Menelik's response was, I think that's enough. Wait for us. We'll come and change your mosques into churches. Right? So the war started. A lot of people died. And, you know, the way we tell the story now is 700 newlyweds died. But
it was way more than that.
It was a lot more than that.
So that's the Chelenqo war that you're talking about.
Yeah. So the reason why we focus on the 700 newlywed is these are, you know, young men who at that time were just married and had so much to look forward to. You know, but when the time came to protect their land, they sacrificed so much and left their homes to fight, and they died there. Right? It's just to acknowledge their sacrifice. But when we want to talk about actual deaths and the impact that it had, it was significantly exponentially more. Right? So the war was over. And a lot of like a lot of the documents you find nowadays that tell us about what happened afterwards, it's powdered up. It's like, you know, it was a peaceful entry. You know, they opened the gates of the city, they appointed generals and so on. They don't mention the massacres. They don't mention the destruction of historical sites. They don't mention.
They actually changed one of the mosques into a church, the main one in the middle of the city.
Right? Yeah. So that mosque, Al Mashhad Masjid, at that time was the main mosque of Harar.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was one of the larger ones too.
Yeah.
So that one was transformed into a mosque.
Into a church.
Into a church, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I was talking to the elders in Harar at that time, and he's telling me, until recent times, there were books in there that belonged to, like, previous scholars.
Oh, wow.
And until recent times, they wouldn't allow us to take it on until now.
So they just stayed in the church?
I'm not sure, like, what the reality situation is, but, like, apparently they just stayed there.
Oh.
And now they were able to take them?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At least they didn't, like, destroy them. I guess that's the one good thing.
Yeah, but a lot of things were destroyed, so.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't want to cut you off, but we're at 49 minutes. Can we just, like, pause the camera?
Oh, yeah. Guys, we'll be back in here just a second to continue with our story. Okay, and we're back. So where did we leave off? We were talking about how they transformed the mosque. They gave us some of our books back. But then after that, so what exactly? So that was like, what year was that actually happened? The Chelenqo War.
I'm not really good with dates. I'm so sorry. I'm good with information, but the moment you ask me a date, like, my mind goes all over the place.
Every time for me, I think about it like it was around the year 1890 to like 1900. Yeah, that
1880s.
Kind of, yeah, like late 1800s. But that's because I know that there were some ummas like me 30, 40 years ago. I think my ummah, or maybe my mom told me that, like, her ummah once mentioned that, like, her mom was affected by that war or something like that. So I know it was
one of the newlyweds?
No. Like they were alive when it actually happened. Maybe they don't remember it, but I know that it happened enough to where it was only maybe a couple generations back, right?
I actually heard it from your dad's sister.
Oh, really?
It was her uncle's.
Maybe it was her. She told me.
Yeah, Amina was telling me. Like,
yeah.
Really?
I remember, like, my mother telling me my uncles or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's actually pretty interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So that's where I heard it from. So, and then I feel like after that, like you mentioned, there was already sort of on a decline. But when you have a country or like an empire like Abyssinia just come in and kind of like rip out the youth, because I feel like it's always the next generation's job to kind of pass on the culture and knowledge and everything in our history. But when literally your whole youth base kind of just gets killed in a war, it's like, how does that even happen, right?
Like, how did they go? Where did they go?
Like there's
there?
a huge chunk of information that's kind of missing there because that whole generation was kind of killed in the war.
It's not just youth based, it's like men in general. There weren't any men in the city.
Yeah. And Chelenqo, like, was it strictly Harari people were fighting, or we had like multiple ethnicities in this, or did they kind of like be like, okay, this is you guys,
like,
we're gonna stick on the sidelines?
We did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes when we tell the story, that aspect is forgotten. But and the reality of the situation is that we as Hararis did not fight the war alone.
Yeah.
It was this war was seen more of an Islamic war than a Harari war to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Harar being the head of the state at that time, that's how kind of gets told as a Harari story.
Yeah.
But there were Oromo people involved in that war. On our side.
Yeah.
There were Somali people. There's Afar people. There's Agobe people. There's so many different ethnic groups that were part of that war.
Yeah.
So they all have a part in it as well too.
And there's actually an interesting story that you put up. I think it was recently. It's like an answer to one of your things you put up was like, are you interested in the history or something like that? But it was weird because the people who actually live next to Harar are like, don't have this like drive to learn about our history. Yeah, the locals don't have the same drive that we do. And why do you think that is?
That frustrated me so much.
Like, people who literally live there don't have the same.
It was a great question. Like, it was a good discussion.
I forget what the actual question was now, but that's essentially what we got from. We found that the people who actually live either in Harar or near Harar, or maybe in Addis, which is like the main city in Ethiopia, they're confused on why we have this such a love for, or we're so invested in learning about our history and our culture, when they're like, it's just like, the town over. That's what we just know that's where we're from. It
is, and I think it's because they haven't been through the same things we have, living in lands that are far away from Harar. Because when you're being raised in the West or in Australia or somewhere in Europe, it's a totally different vibe, it's a different culture, and it's very easy to get lost in you know, where you are at that point in time. Whereas them, they're always connected because there's a large community that still has the ability to express their culture in a weekly or like, you know, daily basis kind of thing, right? So they haven't been exposed to the same things we have in that sense, where we feel disconnected from the culture. And if someone doesn't actively like seek out their identity or being Harari in the West, then give it one generation and the whole culture is gone. Whereas for them, if they don't actively seek it out, it's still preserved for them in a way because they're immersed in it. You know what I mean? But one of the things I realized, well, I've realized this before, but it genuinely settled this in my head, is, again, if someone wants to fight me on this, please message. I feel
this guy's ready to fight.
No, it's just something that I've been holding in for so long.
Yeah, you're
it's
passionate
like,
about it. Don't worry. Go ahead.
You hear a lot about how we're endangered, we're extinct, we're not going to survive 2 generations, right? And we're always so ready as a people to blame it on other external factors, right? Oh, it was the Chelenqo War. Yeah, true. Right? Oh, it's because so many of us live outside of the country, or oh, it's a certain ethnic groups that are attacking us. But at this point in time, what I genuinely believe is the biggest detrimental factor to the Harari identity is Harari people ourselves, right? Because
I feel like you need like a round of applause because I totally agree.
You have to take the onus.
It is, right? Because, you know, from my personal standpoint, like a lot of the things I hear from like people in my generation is whenever I started off with these projects is, oh, you're a fob, haha, or you're fresh off the boat, or your socks are still wet. You know, like like it's very lighthearted. I get it. It's a joke, haha, kind of thing. But you know,
that's so bad.
It's like, this is someone that this is a project that's preserving a history, right? Or when you try to talk to other people within the culture, it's like, oh, that's so like 100 years ago, or it's not really relevant to us as a people at this point in time, right? And I was like, oh, right. And this is something you hear a lot in the diaspora. And then when I went there, it's like a lot of the same notions were being said there, which caught me off guard. And like when I wanted to go to Harar, it's like, oh, how long are you going for? I want to go for a week, or you're gonna hate it. Or
what?
You're not gonna like it, right? Make it 2 days, or you should only go for 2 days, or you'll be bored, or like there's not a lot to do. It's like, or it's a rapsha, like there's a lot of like, you know, unsettlement there, and you're not.
Which I never saw when I was there.
There's nothing there. It's like it's just a lot of rumors that we as a people, like it bubbles up.
We build it up a lot more than it really is.
The reality is, so a lot of people lose the taste to go there, right? Or like they lose the motivation to learn the language, or they lose, like, for example, maybe that's not your case, but like some people who don't speak the language, like in the West, the reason why they don't speak the language is they try to learn the language from their parents, and they tell them, you know, what is it going to do for you, right?
Really?
Even
like,
their parents?
Yeah, so like a lot of the parents, they try to learn English from their kids and speak English to them, right? And they try to learn, but it's like, you know, just like focus on your studies and stuff like that. So it's stuff like this, and I feel like we as a people need to take the responsibility and the onus, and especially in our generation, it's like to make an active effort to kind of you know, stop these kind of rhetorics. Is that the word I'm looking for? And to kind of like build an environment where we can, you know, in a positive way, just build what was destroyed over the years.
I thought that was like common sense to try and preserve your culture and your history as much as possible. Like that's something that
you know what though, it's kind of like when you have something around all the time, you kind of take it for
you get
granted,
desensitized to it,
right? And did you guys notice that in, you know, cities with a large Harari population outside of Harar, we all have Harari communities, because that's I guess our parents' attempt
to connect
to preserve the culture somehow. Whereas if you go back home,
there's nothing.
They don't have Harari communities.
They don't.
And you're like, well, how do you guys see each other? Like they visit family when they need to on Eid,
but they don't like get together as
I thought that was like I can't imagine living in a city.
I never knew that. I never put that together.
Crazy? I asked one of my cousins, I'm like, how often, you know, do you guys connect as a community? She's like, what community? And I was like, huh?
Really?
Yeah, they don't. Why would they need a community to preserve their culture when they
can just go there if they wanted to?
Right.
Because for them, it's only a 6-hour drive. But knowing that it's only a 6-hour drive to go there kind of makes you take advantage, or not take it for granted in a way.
And it's also like, I think, you know, and I'm not trying to like hate on the locals. No, I'm not.
I'm playing.
I just think that, like even our family, when we say we're going to go to Harar, they're like, oh, go feed the hyenas, go have fatira. But it's like, there's so much more to the city. Like, there's so much, like, it's so commercialized now. And I know that they're doing certain things to kind of attract the diaspora and get them to stay because, we're attracted to shiny things. But, there's such a deep rooted, like, culture and history, and I'm so glad that even though we were there for 2 days and we spent that one day kind of going around, I learned more that one day than I think I ever have in my entire life.
Were you with us? Were you with us when you went around to each gate?
No, I've done the tour. I've done the tours of the gates before, but that one day that we were in the museum and we like spent time there, I was like, wow, like I need to come back here. I need to come back ASAP. Like 2 days is not enough. So even a week, I've the longest I've ever stayed there was maybe 3 or 4 weeks, but I was a kid, so
that's a long time.
I know. But I'm so like, I wish I had that opportunity now that I'm older. I don't know, maybe one day in the future, but I think what you're saying in terms of preserving the culture, it's so, that discussion in itself, I hope that because this book is not just for what do you want to call us, diaspora?
No,
it's not just for us. It's also for the locals who, although they might have like a faint memory or a faint kind of like, oh yeah, my mom talked about this tradition, like I hope that this kind of inspires us to not only educate ourselves but like maybe revive the actual traditions.
Exactly.
And when y'all get married, we'll see these traditions come to life at their weddings.
Inshallah.
Do you know if they follow a lot of these traditions back home still?
The main ones, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're like the main ones for every part of the wedding.
Yeah.
They do, but there's stuff in there like I asked my mom about, and she goes, oh, I heard about that once,
Wow, even for your mom's generation.
Yeah, so there are certain things that are rarely done, like a bak al-muz. Have you guys ever heard of that?
What? Mousse? You do something with bananas?
That's what it literally translates to. So like when they first told me this, like, are you trying to pull a joke on me right now? It's like, is this an actual thing?
Yeah.
But it is an actual thing, right? So it's
Can you repeat it? What is it?
It's called a bak al-muz.
A bak al-muz?
Yeah.
I never even knew that. I thought horse was faras.
Horse is faras. I'm not sure if faras is gaysanat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but bakal is...
It's not horse. It's a mule.
Sorry,
mule.
mule.
Okay.
Yeah, but it looks just like one.
I thought that was wachara.
Close enough.
Wachara is
no,
not?
that's donkey.
Wait, what's a mule then? Isn't a mule a donkey?
It's between a horse and a donkey.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on, Amir.
It kind of looks like
I always thought a mule was a donkey.
Wait, so what is bak al-muz?
Damn
it. Sorry.
If you ask me like about the specifics that's in the book, can I look at the book?
Yeah.
This is a test.
Go for it.
There's just so much in here, like, and I haven't like really been through in a while.
I was also going to ask you another question while you're looking that up. Like, what was something that you learned while compiling this book that surprised you, or maybe you didn't know before? Like just like a
bak al-muz.
I mean, it could it could be that.
Well, yeah, what was it?
So it's a check-in. That's what I call it. So every part of the Harari traditional wedding, every ceremony, I gave it an English name to kind of give you an idea of what it's called.
Okay.
So we called it the check-in, right?
Okay.
So it's literally the first ceremony after all the official wedding ceremonies are done. There's other ceremonies that follow just to like wrap up the wedding. And the first one that happens is the bak al-muz. Is basically where the bride's friends come to visit her the next day. And they bring her bananas and they bring her...
they take it literally.
One of the things they culturally bring are bananas, mousse, right? And they also bring other gifts such as kohol, right? And houseware and mots and other things to make her happy, and bisha, which is like gum. And this is just them saying, hey, I know this is a big milestone and it's your first night after being a married woman. We just want to see how you're doing, right?
Why don't we do that here?
Right?
That's so nice.
Well, now that we have it, I feel like now that we actually have it written down, like we might actually be practicing more of our traditional stuff here, like outside of Harar, and like trying to revive the traditions in a way, like something like this. You might be able to put it together.
Yeah, bring Amir some bananas.
Not me, the ladies.
Think of like a wedding that you've gone to here or outside of Harar, and it's been like 4 or 5 days and you're like, damn, when is this wedding gonna end? Imagine if someone actually did every single event, like cultural event that we do. that wedding will be like 2 weeks long.
Do you know what the thing is though?
Yeah, it would be.
It's like the culture is very intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the way we do it now is we do these really big weddings that are more show than meaning,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the way all these traditions are meant to be is like they're generally very small, except for 1 or 2 of them, right? And they're meant to be very intimate moments, and each one has a certain meaning behind it. This is a totally different discussion about like divorce and stuff, but I feel like I genuinely believe that marriages in that generation, they were very successful because of these ceremonies, because each of these ceremonies had a meaning in there for the bride and groom to take into their marriage, which later helped there, right? Like one thing we did in this book that I think our generation would really appreciate is we but we gave the definition, no, not word for word, but general definition of what each song means in the Gufta Mogad.
Oh,
right?
I love that.
And it's so profound.
I've never I don't know if you guys have attended Gufta Mogad, and we can talk about what that means, like for those that are listening. But when they sing that one when they're actually parting the bride's hair.
Can you sing it for us?
I'm not gonna sing it.
Come on, Sarah.
No,
you tried to get him to sing it. You gotta sing it now.
You have the voice.
Oh, okay. Now your voice is not hurting. Okay, it is a podcast. Your voice is perfectly fine. What are you talking about?
All I know is I have the word Lula in it.
Do your followers know that you used to sing?
Listen, all right.
Oh, we gotta get into that at some point.
Can you like put a clip afterwards?
Amir?
Of like the.
We'll do a whole podcast.
But I've always wondered what what does that mean? Like sometimes, when you're listening to like even if it's just like Harari songs or dhikr and stuff, and you're like, you don't take in the meaning sometimes.
Yeah.
And then when you sit there and you really think about it, you're like, oh, that's what it means. Like that's so cool. So I'm excited to read the translations. Do you have the Gesinan, like the lyrics as well, or
like
no?
phonetically written out, right?
Yeah. So all the lyrics are there, and then we have a section that follows every song that kind of gives a definition of what the song means, and if there's a history behind it, we tell a bit of the history as well too, and
so
then we
cool.
tell like how to sing it, right? But yeah, so like what I was saying is that they're so profound, and like they have like lessons for the bride and groom to take into their marriage, right? And that's throughout the wedding. But one of the ones that like literally stuck in my head is from the Gufta Mogad, is literally the part you're talking about now is like Hashamo kil godoro sagarahulo elad gifare. Right, and that verse is stuck in my head for some reason.
I don't even know what you just said.
Yeah, I was like, for the longest time, I was like, this is gibberish, right?
Yeah.
And I asked one of my aunts, it's like, I have no idea what it means either. We just sing it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But after like the research we did and speaking with the elders, Hashimakul Godoro, they're just saying like, hey, we fixed the bride's hair, and we bunched it together, as they prepared the bride's hair, and then afterwards the next part goes Sagarahulo elad gifare. And it's one of those situations where we know which each word means, but what in the world does it mean?
Yeah.
Right? As a sentence. Sagara, means sewer.
Yeah.
Right?
Or washroom.
Yeah. Yeah. Hul means, it's like a vegetation that grows and is very cheap. Something very similar to collard greens or kale.
Yeah.
Right? Elad gifare, bring out flowers. Bring us, grow some flowers. Right? So literally means, kale that grows in the sewers, bring out a flower.
Interesting.
Right? So what does that mean?
Yeah.
And I found that so interesting that they sing that during a wedding, a wedding ceremony. And basically what it means is that, sagara is the sewer, and that's an analogy of this world. Right? So, if you're living in a situation in a world that is like a sagara, that's like not the most ideal or opportune or what you're looking for or what you want it to be. And they're speaking to the bride here. It's like, after this marriage, if you're stuck in a situation that may not be the best, it's not exactly what you wanted, but it still works. Hul, meaning the kill, is an analogy for the bride. Elad gifar, grow off flowers. Right.
Interesting.
So if you're
make good things out of bad situation.
Exactly. You're married to someone now, and maybe he's not the richest guy.
Yeah.
Right. But there's always a flower in the situation. And make it grow, kind of thing.
Flip it, make it something positive.
Yeah, it's profound.
I mean, for those of you that want to know what Gufta Mogad means, what would you say is
there's probably a description of Gufta Mogad in here as well, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
just
buy
the book, guys.
Buy the book, exactly.
Buy the book if you want to know the definition.
T.O.M. dossier.
Yeah. We'll put all the links in, don't worry.
I mean, I guess I'll hold off on giving.
No, go ahead.
Should I?
Yeah.
Okay. The fact that they're, I guess, giving advice to the bride, as you know, this specific ceremony is supposed to signify her as a now married woman, right? And the tying of the gufta, the act of that, and then I'm sure there's a lot of other cultural songs that I don't know that are sung. I don't know what the lyrics include, but you know, that's interesting that they include advice while they're actually tying the gufta and parting her hair. I didn't know that. Well,
yeah,
good to know.
Every time I like seen a gufta mugad, I'm like, they're making her look like an ummah. Cause like, you know how the ummah sometimes will have the gufta.
I love it.
Cause they put her in like all the traditional like what do you call it?
Atlas
and all that stuff. And I'm like,
as a kid, I used to find it so funny.
I know.
Like the two pom-poms, I used to find it so funny as a kid.
You know what made me sad? And then I saw this. This is like totally side note, but I think the actual act of parting your hair, combing it, tying it, and then tying like a fabric into two balls, that's so like sacred. And now they have ready-made ones.
Really?
Like you just wear like a do-rag.
I heard about that.
I have one at home.
Oh, do you?
I was like, I don't want this one. I want the real one. But it already has like there's like a gold rope or something, like a thing that you're supposed to tie it so that it stays onto your forehead and doesn't slide off. But this one already has it like built in. So you literally just slip it on.
Yeah.
I don't
and
like
then at the end of the gufta mugad, you just take it off.
Yeah.
Nah, it doesn't feel right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, no, you got to have the real thing.
Yeah.
I wonder who was the first person who came up with that.
Nah.
I think they're doing it for convenience because like you were saying, like
it's a long process, right?
Yes and no. But it's also, I think the way that we do weddings here, you're right. It is more so for show and extravagance rather than actually displaying our culture. And so I've noticed though, in the last couple of years, every time they sing like Jaliye, everyone's like so amazed, like, wow, I don't even know what Jaliye means, to be honest.
I have a theory.
Oh, you don't know?
You don't even know?
I was like waiting for you to be
exactly.
like,
What did you put that?
I have a theory, but I don't think it's correct. Yeah.
We're interested in hearing it. If you
What's your theory?
It's like I'm always scared to speak because there's always like one
talk
random,
like no one's listening.
Yeah, there's always like one random person be like, "Oh,
this
that's
is
not
a
correct."
safe
You know
space.
what I mean?
This is a safe space.
I will not judge you.
I think it's an Arabic word.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because the word Jalia in Arabic means community, right? So I think when they're saying Jalia, it's like they're singing out to your people kind of thing. Because Jali, like the Jali, there's the one we do in the wedding in Nankar Mahtab where everyone goes to the ground and they sing and they jump.
I don't like that one.
And then there's the other one where like, you know, Ummas sing back and forth and they sing to like people around them, right? And what I think it means is that when they say Jali, it's like you sing, oh, my community, then they sing words, right? And a lot of the time it's like advice or things related to religion or history or like remember kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what it means.
Interesting.
If anyone can confirm or deny, let me know.
The next line is always like Aruze, no? Jali.
That's the wedding one, yeah.
That's the wedding one, yeah.
Oh, then what's the next line when they say it in the Gufta Magad?
Oh, you don't sing Jali yet.
No, but when do they sing it outside of a wedding then?
He was just saying.
Jali is like a type of song. So there's two different types of Jali.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's one like they just sing for whenever people are gathered or
like
other different occasions. Yeah, stuff like that as well too. And then there's the Jali where you do at a wedding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I guess Sada asked a question earlier. I know we kind of already covered a few things that are in the book, but what was the most surprising fact that you learned when putting this information together?
That's a tough question.
Well, like, there's a lot.
Yeah, in a sense. But I think the most surprising is it's probably the lyric that I mentioned now. And it's also just like the stories related behind some of the songs. Because some of the songs, like, they're related to folklore. Some people may call it folklore. Some people may call it a reality. But they have a story behind them. Yeah. Right? And there's a song that they sing. No one really sings it anymore. It's as the bride is leaving her home, right? There's a whole ceremony for that. She just doesn't walk out, right? So like
her parents' home, you mean?
Yeah. Oh. On the way to her husband's home.
Oh, okay.
Right, or their home.
Yeah.
She's being prepared by her mom and her friends in the nadaba. Like they're braiding her hair, they're bathing her in rose water, and they're putting bukhur and all that stuff. And then while that happens, like the guys from her family, they bring out all of the stuff they prepared for her to take to her new home. And among those are mots, right? And they place them on either side of the door. And then as she comes out, they start singing for her, right? And the song that's culturally supposed to be sung is the Saftazi Kamalta Manya Tora Bakalam Zaifarka.
Oh, interesting.
I sort of understand those lyrics now.
Say it again for him.
Amir, can you please
No.
You gotta say it slowly.
Zistaftazi kamalta.
Was she tied up and I don't know what that second word is.
What she sewed? Isn't it what she sewed?
Yeah.
Okay.
What
she sewed and what?
Zikamalta.
Yeah, what does zikamalta mean? I never heard that.
Makamal means like to complete something.
Yeah. Okay.
Manya Tora.
Who's going to pick it up?
Bakalam Zaifarka.
Bikalam.
Bakal.
No, Bakal Zai.
I've never heard the name Bakal. Oh, the one that the mule can't take.
Yeah, we just spoke about it.
That's the only reason I knew that word.
You see?
I know a few things,
you don't
guys.
give yourself enough credit,
man.
Yeah, and there's a super long story behind it. Some people call it folklore. Some people believe like it's a true story. But it's like it's a love story, and it's a story of like woe, and it's a story that has a moral behind it. And that's where the song comes from, right? And it's like, again, it's just the part that surprised me is that nothing is in vain, nothing is happenstance or coincidence. Like everything is like very intentional and has meaning behind it.
Yeah, literally everything. Whatever they make, whatever they sing, whatever they physically do, like it's all has some meaning behind it. It all ties back to the religion. Too.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel like I have like every time I have a conversation with you, like my appreciation for our culture gets revived.
Yeah,
like,
and I hope that whoever listens to this will
that.
have that same
booking
appreciation.
a ticket to Harar right now.
Appreciate that.
And you definitely want to go back to Harar, right? I'm guessing like as soon as you can. Or?
Yeah. I mean, while I was there, I was trying to add another week.
Really?
Yeah, it didn't work out though.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here right
now. But yeah, I feel like we've covered a lot here, and there's probably more we could do, which means that we're gonna have you back again for volume 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
He's gonna be a regular.
If you guys are not tired of me.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I don't know if you want to answer this question or you can just leave it as, stay tuned. But what do you have next for T.O.M?
There's a lot.
Oh, really? Okay.
And maybe this is a good opportunity for me to speak out to the followers.
Go for it.
Is we need help, right? When I first started, the project was with me, and it was too much. I added 2 more people, and we were able to get this done, which is pretty big.
Yeah.
But like our ambitions are high, and to be able to meet those ambitions, we do need the support of our people. So one of the things we're looking forward to is everyone purchasing the book and benefiting from it and sharing it with their friends.
Yeah.
But another thing is we also want to grow the team, right? So if there's anyone out there that is skilled with writing. We are looking for a grant writer, in addition to someone to help us with the more administrative tasks of this project, so that the other people on the team can focus on writing and doing the research that's required. But to answer your question, there's a lot more in the works.
Y'all heard him. Stay tuned and reach out to Hasan. I guess you're the main person that they reach out to.
Yeah. Okay. Or directly to the Threads and Memory Instagram page as well too.
I'm gonna put up like all the Instagram pages and everything.
Right
we'll put
here,
in the description. Yeah, I'll put it right there. Why not? But yeah, just also I just want whoever's listening to this and just know that when you're purchasing this book, you're not only like just purchasing a book, you're also investing in like the future of us preserving our knowledge and in our history.
Yep.
For future generations. So like don't think of just the physical book here, like you're doing a lot more than that.
Inshallah, yeah.
Inshallah.
Hasan should run for president in Harar, just saying.
Knowing the political situation,
nah.
Maybe that's your retirement plan in like 20 years.
That's a different story.
All his hairs will turn gray after that. No.
All my hairs, huh? Oh man, whatever's left of it.
Yeah. So what was the website again that they can go to
so it's tomproject.ca, and then the Instagram handle is TOM project, I believe.
Is it T.O.M or is it just TOM?
I think so, but I think you're gonna post it on there.
Yeah,
right?
we'll post it on
okay,
there,
please. Yeah.
I was gonna fact check for you, but it'll. Oh, you want me to prove you right or wrong?
We'll pull it up right now.
Yeah, we will. It is Oh, it's actually T.O.M_project on Instagram.
And the website's
TOMproject.ca.
Yeah, tomproject.ca.
Yeah.
I guess that's good for the audio listeners.
Yeah.
It's a lot
You
more
gotta
easier.
make sure. Yeah. But yeah, thank you again, Hasan, for coming out
Thank you for having
and
me.
speaking us, giving us a little bit more insight into our history.
Yeah.
No worries. I don't mind geeking
and
out.
putting it together for us in this nice book here. Hopefully
Shout
we
out
can have you
to-
more again. What?
To Nader and Hamdi.
Oh yeah, shout out to
100%.
Nader and Hamdi, and also sorry, I forgot
and
to mention.
Tasneem Sadi.
Yeah, Tasneem
And Tasneem.
Sadi.
Big
Like
time.
there's for people who watch on video, there's a bunch of illustrations on the book, and inside the book there are multiple pages of just. Should I show them?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like pages of like paintings inside that Tasneem Sadi.
No, so the illustrator is Dalia.
Oh, the illustrator is that. Yeah.
She actually lived in Toronto for quite some time, but
Okay.
she currently lives in Dubai.
Okay.
So she is our illustrator. Huge shout out to her. Like, this project would have been this project without her. Like, her continued support, like giving us the motivation and the confidence we needed to kind of start off all the way to the very end. It's very much appreciated.
And also, I believe if people really like the illustrations in the book, they can actually buy the prints of the books as well, right? Or the paintings in the book, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's
okay.
that's something I should probably clarify. So on our site, we do have the prints available for every painting in the book, but they're poster prints that will be available for sale, and there will be a sale price as well too. So we're gonna have like buy one get 25% off for Ramadan.
Okay, perfect.
But if you want the actual like art print, which is very different from a poster print, you can we will add her at
don't worry, we'll add
and
that
you can
too.
reach out to her and she'll have the art print available as well too.
Yeah. Okay, so do you want to close this out for us, Sarah?
I guess so. So, I think we want to thank you again for coming on today and teaching us a lot. And, I hope you guys at home listening have enjoyed this episode. If you want to hear more from Hasan and the guys from the Threads of Memory Project, let us know in the comments, and we'll force him to come back on.
Exactly.
And aside from that, we're gonna leave all of Hasan's social media, the project page, in the description, and don't forget to follow us on Cousin Connection Pod on Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe, because we're gonna have a lot more content for you coming up soon, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh,
Is that what we're doing?
Bye.
Bye.
All right, exactly.
Give me a heads up.